What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 38. And we have a special guest with us today. We've got JessGOAT. You might recognize her. She's a Siege content creator as well as a caster. She's done analyst work in the pro scene before, does a lot of work in the European League, and former coach as well. So many hats that JessGOAT has worn from time to time, and we're really thrilled to have you on. I mean, there's a lot to go over in this episode. Obviously, we just had the NA League finals. We had the European League finals. We're going to be talking about that at some point. We've had a lot of mid-season patch notes that we're going to be talking about. A code of conduct just released. So much stuff. So let's get into it. Jess, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, how are you?
I'm good. As you know, we've got all those drops happening recently, so I've been chugging the streams like no tomorrow. So I'm a little tired, but I'm so glad to be here. Good to discuss everything. That's what I love doing.
How are the drops working out? You guys happy with how that's going so far?
I mean, I was averaging, my CCV was like, 500 and something, and now I'm averaging like 1.8, 1.7, 1.8.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we're hitting it.
It's insane what it does to viewer numbers.
Unbelievable.
But it's it's only positive, but people have to be careful with the metric, right? Because it massively boosts the viewers, but the engagement rate doesn't get much higher. So like my stats are pretty much the same, except viewer numbers climbed like insanely. Like there's no negative to it. It's just people have to remember that it's once those drops go away, so does a lot of what was with the drops. But just so people don't get like too excited about it.
The viewer number though feeds my ego, and that's what I live on.
I guess
so I'm happy. Now I've only streamed a few times since they've gone, and I've seen a bump, and I've been encouraged. I thought you might get a lot of like toxicity and stuff like that with just people showing up for the drops and not caring and just being a troll or whatever. But actually, it hasn't been too bad in my streams. I've had a good time with it. So I'm really happy with how the drops are working out, and they're going to continue to do so. I believe that I don't want to speak for you, Jess, but I believe both of us are in the tier 2 as well. So we'll have the next phase of drops, and then I don't know about the third phase for you, but I know I'm not in the third phase. My understanding is that only people with the charms are in the third phase. So Zoronic, we'll have to host Zoronic or something. But maybe you know something different than I do.
I actually have no idea.
Okay,
I just know that through the whole invitational, and I think a little bit after, drops are enabled, and there are different phases, and they swap around at different points. I did find it a bit weird that there was a special phase for the people that already have the charms, but I mean, I'm not gonna complain. It's just hard to keep track of.
I initially put out something saying that I was upset that they chose to do it that way, but I get it. I do. I mean, clearly, I don't have a charm, so I'm gonna cry. I want to be involved in all the phases of the charms. I don't have a charm, so that's I'm my perspective is a little bit skewed there. But I understand why they did it. Like you want to reward the people who have been streaming the game for a long time and have been dedicated to it. And you also, when you're dealing with packs and stuff like that, you can't give them to everybody. So when you start having to make a decision and eliminating certain groups of people, I understand using that metric to do it. I really do.
I think they should have, maybe they'll do this another time, but I think they should have went in and said that before Invitational, all pro players and all caster crew were the ones that had it. So they promoted the profile of them, the ones mainly involved, because I mean, I guess we can get into that as well, but like I won't be part of Invitational. So it feels weird to have like the charm or the drop program linked to some of the people that basically will have pretty much nothing to do with the broadcast or playing or the event, right? I think it would have been better done if it was focused on players, because then maybe we could get some more players to stream as well, which would be a good thing. I don't know, maybe they don't like the game enough to be good PR streaming, but we'll see. I just think that could be an interesting take on it. But I'm not gonna complain. I'm super happy they did it. The phase program is just a little difficult to keep track with. People already have difficulties figuring out how drops work. I mean, you can see that from every chat. Drop. Please drop. Why no drop? I watched 3 hours. Give
Claim
drop now.
drop. Claim
Yeah,
drop.
claim drop. You know, it's actually a
drop.
little dangerous as well. Not to say that there are content creators that don't like the competitive scene. You know, I'm thinking of Kitty, who recently signed by Rogue. She's been streaming a lot as well, and she loves competitive scene, so it makes sense that the link already exists there. But then there are other streamers, and not to say like they don't like competitive esports or whatnot, but what corner does that push them in when 6 invitational rolls around? They've got a schedule that they adhere to. Most of us are going to go, no, we won't stream during the broadcast because A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? That person goes, hang on, that's my schedule. What am I going to do now? Because I was linked with 6 invitation before. People are linking me with it, but then I'm just streaming throughout it. So I think it sets a dangerous sort of corner that they have to sort of sit in as a content creator, especially if that's their full-time kind of thing.
In all fairness, there should be no drops during the actual event except for on the main channel. Like, I don't know. I think the toggle on Twitch is a little bit more difficult to turn on and off. I'm pretty sure you go in and like you hire a set amount of time or something, and then you have drops, because if they wanted to actually, no, that couldn't be, because on Tarkov they had it for one person and then another person, then another person. So you probably could do it. But yeah, in my opinion, they should do it so when Invitational is actually live, it is only the main channel that has drops.
Because what are people going to do? What do they want? Do they want every one of us content creators? Because this is what's going to happen. The moment 6 Invitational ends, or right before it, we're all streaming. Like, all of us are streaming. Like, is that what they want? Because that content creators versus content creators, some of us time our streams so that we're not streaming at the same time as Bolo, or we're not streaming at the same time as Pengu, or whatever, you know what I mean? So that, because a lot of our audiences in our statistics are the same. So are you really going up against, 20 other competitors at the same time? I mean, these are for full-time streamers who I'm obviously thinking of their income and everything like that. Me, this is a side hobby. I get, nice pocket money, sweet. But that's what I'm thinking.
They'll always boost though. Even like your viewer base, like it'll still trickle down better. Let's say you're averaging 800 and a big one comes on that averages 3,000. You might drop down to 700, but if another big one comes on, it's not like you're gonna keep dropping until you just don't exist anymore, right? Like streaming while someone that is drastically bigger than you is on doesn't have bad impact. So if all of a sudden all of the big streamers jump on at the same time, there's just gonna be a bigger viewer pool in general. Like everyone's gonna take a little bit of a hit, but I think that's still better because the overall viewer number on Siege is bigger, and that's still a good thing for us all individually, right? Yeah, like I'd rather stream for, let's say, 900 viewers if there's 30,000 people watching Siege, than I would stream for 1,000 if there's 10,000 people watching Siege. Because having a larger pool watch the game still benefits more in the long run. They might go watch YouTube, they might get involved with Twitter, right? So anything to boost the entire scene is always a positive.
I overall, I think, the drops are huge, and I'm glad they did it, and it's been an overwhelming positive thing, I think. I think that we've all kind of made some points on how maybe it could be some notes they could take for the next time they do this, but I'm really glad that they did it. And I think everybody's pretty excited too. So do you guys want to talk about these mid-season patch notes that came out yesterday?
Oh, yes.
I got them out.
All right. So I guess let me set the stage here. For anybody who's not familiar, the year 5, season 4 mid-season designer notes came out yesterday, and with that we got the most recent win deltas for attackers and defenders. We got the ban rates, and we also got the upcoming notes for balance changes that are going to be coming into the game. I think probably the thing that's probably getting the most headlines right now as far as the balance changes is that Ella and Sophia are losing their hidden mechanics in the game. Sophia is losing Withstand. Ella is losing the ability to detonate a Grismont mine in the down but not out stage. They're also losing how they're resistant to each other's concussion effects. The other big headline in there is that Melusi is losing angle grip, and nobody's necessarily upset about that, but they're upset that that's not the real problem. A lot of people feel like the real problem with Melusi has nothing to do with the angle grip, and it has to do with her banshees. And I think a lot of people were really hoping that we were going to see some changes to the way that either her banshees work or some type of nerf to her utility. So that's kind of what the big things that I took away from it. What about you guys?
I think it's a shame that withstand is even a conversation.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I don't care if it's there. I don't care if it goes. I don't care if it's there. I think that took way too much air.
Yeah.
Like, there was so much oxygen. It's just a lot of oxygen wasted on something that isn't that important. Like, sure, okay, it's there for lore. Maybe it's not the best mechanic in the world. It's not Lion. Right? It's not Blackbeard's shield. It's a little annoying. And if you lose to, you know what? If you lose to Sophia that's withstanding, that's really on you. I don't care about it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'm fine with them removing it. No issue. I just wish people would focus on, I don't know, more interesting things.
I don't know. I got to counter it because I still think to myself that the whole Melusi withstand issue, and people came in with the argument that, you know, it was part of her lore, or the argument that it wasn't even that big of a deal, so whatever. Well, if it's not that big of a deal, then if they get rid of it, it's not big of a deal, is it? Because you didn't really care about it to begin with.
But that's what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm saying, is that the argument was kind of weird and random, right? Like, it didn't really make sense. The other side of the argument compared to what mine was just get rid of it. It seems like a non-factor. Sure. Just, it's ridiculous to have.
But I think we're both, like, fairly calm when it comes to that. Like, I saw people almost, like, having goddamn banners on the street and rioting over it, right? Like, it's one thing that you use. Like, I've maybe died to twice since Sophia came out. It's rare. It's really rare.
Does anybody pick Sophia and think, I'm picking her because of withstand?
But she's objectively the strongest attacker in the game because holistically she has all of these things, right? Like, just overall, she is the strongest attacker by far. So I think it just topples on. It's a toppling effect. It's that domino effect. Well, she also has withstand, which is not part of her gadget, which is part of a lore, which is this, which is that. And I think overall, everyone who at least was on, you know, the side of the fence I was, sort of said, look, the reason we're making a big deal out of it now is it happened a couple of times in the EU finals. People thought of it as an issue, right? I get it. They saw it being a problem in those 2 rounds, right? And then we all turned around and went, well, right now, because we're in a really good spot of Siege meta, no one's really worrying about the big things, because a lot of the big things we were complaining about before got fixed. And now we're trying to find the new wave of things we want to be pissed off about. Let's be honest. That's how Siege goes every season. Yeah. And
but the problem with that, though, the unfair thing with pulling out those comp games was that if it had been Doc, we would all have celebrated it.
It's his gadget.
Sure. But we can't go in and say, ooh, it was an unfair win because it was a secondary gadget that these super elite players knew nothing about.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it happened. They knew. They could predict it. It's like they just lost the round. The Sophia arguably ended up playing it better. Sure, they won because of that, but that's the same as if I place a Claymore and someone jumps into it. Then I win because of that. It's not necessarily like it's an addition. What I think is a shame is that we use, oh my god, it's only there because of lore. I don't buy that one. It doesn't matter why it's there. Either the argument is it's bad for balance, like the operator's overtuned and too strong. I'll buy that. That's fine. Yeah. Sophia does too much. She's too strong. Yeah. If Buck needed to lose his nades, Sophia needs a nerf.
Yeah.
If people are okay with withstand being the only nerf on Sophia, then I think they focused on the wrong stuff.
Well, Sophia's kind of a Sophia being strong right now is a bit of a necessary evil because of the utility clear meta. So we don't want to go nerfing her too heavily because we want. And that wasn't the only nerf she received, by the way. She also received a nerf where her explosion range was limited, not as much as Ash's was, but still it was limited. So there's a couple nerfs in there. The only thing I would say regarding first of all, I agree with most of what you said there, Zeron. The only thing I would say regarding Doc that it's different in my mind is that there's a decision there. So first of all, I'm bringing Doc knowing the utility that he brings, and that if I find myself in a situation where I only have 1 stim left, and I can either heal my teammate or save it in case I get into the down but not out stage, then that's a choice that I made. It has gameplay ramifications. Sophia, the withstand's just always there. I just think withstand, period, is a bad mechanic. Unless it's universal or unless it's universal or or attached to the gadget. So Doc doing it makes sense. I think Finka should be able to withstand
I agree.
if she has
if
one
she
of
has
her
a
charges
boost,
left. That makes sense to me, but that's kind of where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I'm completely fine with that as well. I just think that the thing that pisses people off is like it goes back to that whole like balance versus frustration. Because if you lose to a Sophia that withstood, you arguably don't deserve to win that fight. But if like what does she have, 5 HP after picking herself up?
Yeah.
If I don't know, like if it's a gadget or if it's choice, like it's there, you know it's there. I think you look back at it and you go, oh, I would have won that round if she didn't have withstand. And then you take it out of the 500 matches you played, and that's one thing that you know that bothers you about that round. You could say if she stops the diffuser with the concussion mine, that's arguably something that you had no way of ever countering if she's in the right spot. Or a pulse or a claim or like Capcan trap after Capcan is dead. Right? You back into one without knowing it, or you step in a frost trap. It's a frustration aspect, and it sucks to die to Sophia that did that. But I don't see anything wrong with the ability itself. I think it's weird that it ends up being on one that is arguably one of the strongest attackers. Just like it would be weird if it was an Ashe. It would maybe make more sense if you made it so every like 3 armor had that as an ability. And then that was a small little booster or something. But then again, that would be like kind of a law thing, right? Or it would be linked to some like weird arbitrary reason. But we have so many things in Siege, and I don't know if it's a good argument or not, but I like the fact that there are so much to learn. Like Ashe charges get destroyed by electricity. Sophia's don't. If you're a new player, that makes no fucking sense. None. Right?
Right.
Like the idea of meleeing things that you can't shoot, that is probably the most counterintuitive thing in the world. If you're a new player, you see a bulletproof cam, you're like, oh yeah, Jeff, you can just hit it. Think about how simple that is. Yeah. We have this thing that you can't shoot with a sniper or an LMG. It does nothing. You just walk up to it and you go, got it. Right? Like,
I actually never thought
for new
of that.
players,
That's a good point.
This game is so insanely complicated that us that know how to play it, we just cherry pick small things, and then like my problem was always with the way that people argued for it. If it was law, I don't want to hear that. Like, just say it's bad. Just say you don't like the ability. That's fine. Or, well, it's difficult for new players. The whole fucking game's difficult for new players, man. Like, the whole thing.
I don't know.
Fix it?
I think we're mixing up it's a passive with an ability or gadget. Like, that argument to me, like, I would die on a hill for this argument. In fact, to say that anyone who has something extra beyond their gadget or ability is being given an extra gift. And you either give that extra gift to everyone, or there's a reason that a group of people have it. 3 armor, for example, because of whatever fucking reason, right? But, or they all have it, or no one has it because she has an extra gift on top of her gadget. So people are trying to say it's part of her ability. No, it's not. Her ability is a lifeline. She's got 2 impacts. She's got 2 concussions. She pulls out a launcher. That's her gadget. Stop.
Wait. But where do we cut the line? Because like, what does it matter if it's part of like the gadget that you pull out and the thing you have in your hand, or if it's part of the character? Like, there are some characters that have abilities that are outside of the, like Cav. Cav has things that are outside of her gadget, right?
Well, I think I understand where both of you are coming from. I think here's what I will say to add on to this. I do think that the passives in Siege are messy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say every game, but in most games that I've ever played where passives exist, everybody has a passive. And you know, it's like, hey, this is my character, this is what they do, and this is their passive. And whenever I go to a new character, I'm looking for those same things, and I can check all the boxes. In Siege, that's not the case. Does that mean that we shouldn't have passives, period? I don't know, but I will say they're messy. I think it's fair to say that they're messy. And
yeah, the whole game is that?
How important is that? I don't know. That's I don't, you know, but
my fear is if you want to remove all of them, Like,
Right.
like where
Right.
do we stop then? Because it's so easy to jump to the next one. Like, that's the problem.
Do you have a problem with a Rooney making holes by punching it?
No, but I don't have a problem with any of them, so I'm
Yeah,
the wrong person to ask.
I don't have a problem with a Rooney making holes,
I
personally.
don't either.
But that's arguably
That's arguably
an
an
extra.
extra. Yes.
What, and okay, this is a dumb one, but Cav's interrogation is not her gadget. Her gadget is
Gadget's
silence.
silence. Yeah, you are right. And which counters
Vigil?
certain things. Yeah.
Vigil counters Lion.
Yeah.
Only Lion. He's the only one that does it. His gadget
Yep.
is to counter cameras. Right?
Yep.
Mute counters Dokkaebi. And
Yep.
Blitz has no like transmission thing.
I
That's
don't mind
wired.
counters. I don't mind direct counters to other
Right.
operators and abilities. I don't mind that. The withstand wasn't that. It wasn't ever designed to do that. So that's my differentiation that I make there.
Okay, but so that wouldn't go into like Cav, and I'm sure there's others that I don't know. I'm not thinking about.
Alibi can throw her prismas, and then if you go outside, your identity is not revealed.
Yeah,
You know
that's
that's
actually
that's
super,
a passive. That's
so
a true
annoying.
passive.
And really annoying.
Because nobody has to do anything. All she has to do is exist, and that is on the board. And withstand technically isn't a pass. I mean, you have to actively withstand, but I guess it passively exists. You don't have to like buy it or anything like that. So it's a little confusing there. But yeah, I agree. I agree with both of you in the sense like, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
Are all passives bad? I think it's fair to say that passives are messy in Siege. And you can tell it wasn't part of the original plan, but as they've gone and introduced new operators, they have spiced it up. And that's okay. But if it's also okay if they look at it and they're like, hey, we're 5 years in and now we recognize this is messy and we want to try and clean it up a little bit.
Sure.
That also makes sense.
Also, we have to be careful with because I think a lot of people think that this whole like withstand being removed is something that happened as a knee-jerk reaction to outrage that happened now.
Yeah.
Like this has been on the way for a long time. So before everyone on Twitter is like, "Oh yeah, this I told you," calm down. Like this has been on the way. It's not because of the week in Twitter.
I have had the privilege of sitting in on a balancing cell and seeing things talked about, ideas created, and then seeing them come into the game at a later point.
Yeah.
And I've seen that timetable as far as how long it took. There is zero chance that this happened as a result of the most recent backlash. My guess on this timetable was when they introduced the Tachanka rework and people reacted poorly to him having withstand, that they probably said at that point, okay, clearly, we need to take a look at withstand, and they did. That would be my guess as far as when this process started. I made a video about it, and I'm getting comments now like, "Are you happy now? They did it." No, there's zero chance that it happened that quickly.
The best thing about this change is that it will have no impact on anything at all.
Yeah.
There will be no way for us to measure it.
Yep.
You can't. I promise you're not going to be able to see it on any win delta. It's such a minuscule little thing. So the way I look at it is, as long as it makes somebody happy, it's not really going to make anyone unhappy.
Yeah.
I just don't want the community to take this as, oh yeah, everything we group together about is going to change. Because I've seen enough games where that's not a good thing.
Sure.
Like at some point we have to let the games make the game devs make the games, and then we play them and we can give our feedback instead of demanding that we get it our way. Because that is a slippery slope of destroying balance way more. Because we really suck at balance as players.
Well, I'll give you the best example of why I do not trust the community at the pro level, at the bottom level, is my last playtest session that I was involved in, Kali. I could not have had more arguments with pro players than that particular playtest session. I think we were in Paris, I don't know where we were. And I turned to all of the players sitting in a big conferencing room, and they said, no, it can't do this, and the sniper can't do this, and blah, 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 and sniper ridiculous this, and oh, it can't DBNO someone on one shot, and all this kind of stuff. And I turned to them all, and I said, you've played her for, let's say, 4 maps in total so far. And you've turned around, you've said she's OP. Now, which one of you aced with her? Which one of you was so destructive with her that none of us could counter you? And it blew my mind, because I knew who came up with the operator from Ubisoft, and I know that it was a very, very big passion operator for this particular person. And I said to them, you are going to get feedback from these players that I don't particularly think you should listen to, but it's purely out of the fact that they're going to say it's too strong. It is far too strong this, it's far too strong that. And I was the one person that sat there and said, I disagree. Excuse me, I disagree. I disagree. Can you write down, no, I disagree. Every time. I'm sure the guys there hated me, but they're all thinking about how Carly's sniper rifle is going to be the most damaging thing to enter the game. And this is what happens. I don't think people understand. Pros are coming in and trying to nerf the crap out of an operator before it even exists. And I promise you they're over-exaggerating 9 times out of 10. That is the trouble.
I mean, you have to go back to Goyo before there was something where there was a real issue on release, and it was not really Goyo's fault. It was a lack of utility on attack. Like, that was Goyo wasn't too strong. You could just not bring enough stuff. Yeah. If every nade operator had 3 grenades, Goyo wouldn't have been that big of a problem. If Jager and Wamai wasn't a thing at the same time, Goyo wouldn't have been that big of a problem.
If Goyo would have been the only one with slits in his shield, I think that could have changed things dramatically.
Sure.
Just that simple change alone. But what? Okay, on your point there, Zeronic, what about Melusi? Is that an example where maybe the pros were right when she was introduced? That her utility was a little bit overbearing, and that
Depends.
We're still dealing with it.
What are we talking about? Win? Like, does she skew the win percent too much, or is she not fun?
I think
those two are not
you
the
can make
same.
a case for both based upon the win delta.
Sure, she's not that fun. Win delta, if we actually look at comp games, no.
Okay. I mean, she's got a pretty heavy pick rate in comp, right? But
Sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know the one.
But if her pick rate goes higher than normal and the win rate doesn't go higher than normal, she's arguably not improving anything.
Sure.
She's actually making it worse.
The attacking
If she gets
rate
picked a lot,
though, like unfortunately we cannot compare, and I've been taking these stats with CGG obviously for work, and we cannot compare because what unfortunately has happened simultaneously to her being included is that the attack now has like 20,000 more seconds to work with in a round than, Wamai, Jager, this, that. So now attackers are getting the job done really quickly, comparatively, and so they are winning so many more rounds, but we don't know this is
you can still compare by if we look from round to round. It is a rare, like, we can take one of the Doc Zero games on Coastline. I can't remember who they played against, but Melusi was running every single defense round by both teams, I think. And at no point did it ever, like, there was a couple people that died like around a Banshee, right? They would have done it if it was wire, if it was anything else. And like, removing wire in the middle of a hallway still requires utility. At least if you're using it for the sound cue. So when we saw wire in the hallway, we saw Melusi in the hallway, both was taking an ash charge or a grenade. Like, that's the only thing I mean. Sure, it sucks being in a Melusi, but it's not like it's going to make your not win the gunfight ever. It's not a slowdown on your sensitivity. It slows down your movement and it sucks. But at high level, they're really good at dealing with it. And we also have to be careful we don't get to a point where there is nothing that players don't like that they have to deal with. Because then I think we start getting to a weird place. Sure, give her 2 instead of 3. Fair enough. Now they're going to whine about the 2 that are in the hallway instead of the 3 that are in the hallway. That's my problem, is that it's when they're in the Melusi and they don't have what they need to remove it that it makes them upset. It's not the fact that there's 3 around the map, because one of them they're never ever going to get to. They never even see it. So they only meet 2 anyway. I don't know, man. Like, I think attackers should have the option to have too much utility removal at a cost of something else. Like, we've talked about it before with Troy and Parker on here. Like, if attackers have something extra, but it has to come at a cost. So the defenders take it at a cost as well, right? I'm fine with bulletproof stuff. We just need more interactions with it. So there is constantly this, like, rock paper scissors thing. The problem I see right now is that you place it down and there are certain operators that can remove it, and that's it. Or you have to go up and punch it, which is not realistic in most situations, at least. If Jaeger didn't destroy things, but I don't know, disabled them or shot them in a different direction, so there was some danger to it as well. Like there's so many things that can be done there. I just don't think that, okay, take them away from Melusi, then we're gonna have another one. Like, we're already looking at mirror, one mirror window only. Maestro cam, one Maestro cam only. Can you imagine being a casual player all of a sudden in this game, and then every time you get to play Maestro, you have one cam you can use? That just doesn't seem fun.
Good point.
Like, I want gadgets when I play, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's why I play. I played for the destruction and all the like cool shit you can do with your gadgets. I don't want the game to go some like overbalanced direction where everyone is 1-to-1.
My biggest fear, and something that I've felt has been brewing for about a year and a half since I pretty much stopped professional coaching, I have felt that pros have always complained that there is not enough action for them. And by action, they don't mean the fun I find in Siege, where I get to, clear things or deny things or go for the objective or be really tactical or be really intel based with my drone, or if I'm on defense, my cams, and I'm trying to outplay them with verticality or whatever. That's how I find fun in the game, right? I like being super tactical, super intel. They mean pew pew pew. And as players keep saying, I'm not pew pewing enough, and that's the biggest bit of feedback, positive feedback, that has come in this season since the changes, is that, oh my god, I get into more gunfights. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Gunfights are fun and everything like that, but you are having players, whether it's pro players, whether it's non-pro players, high elo players, whatever it might be, and they're all saying, I want more gunfights, I want more gunfights. At some point, we have to admit that they are asking to move towards another game. That's what they want. They want Siege that was originally built to be tactical, objective, intel-based, first-person shooter. You see all the words that came before first-person shooter? Those are the words that this game was built on, not the first-person shooter bit. It happens to be a part of the game, of which can be integral to a round or not. You can have a 5v5 objective plan and go for a retake. Everyone's throwing C4s and smoke and this, and it's all chaotic, and that's what I love. But that is not what Siege was originally built for. It hasn't grown into that by any means and never will. Not if you're going to expect 100 operators, if that was the game's goal from the very get-go. And so my problem is that we have players, and I'm going to use the pro players as an example because this is the ones I mostly, sort of a bit echo-chambered around. And they want Call of Duty Team Deathmatch. That's what they want, let's be honest. And I am so fearful that they will push and prod and complain to the point where it's not Siege anymore. And the day that comes will be the saddest day.
I can tell you that based upon the feedback I've gotten from these mid-season patches, that to me, it seems like the average player is not happy. The feedback I've gotten so far has been people calling it Rainbow Six Siege nerf. Like, it's just like they nerf everything. And if you look at the patch notes, there's a lot of nerfs in there. Even the buffs are actually nerfs. Callie, I don't know if you guys have dug into that. Mm-hmm. I initially made my video where I was looking at it and I was like, okay, Callie got buffed. But when you actually look at it, you can make the case that she got nerfed because there's people that she would have down but not outed before, and now she won't. And it's really strange.
You could just call it a change because
it's a change.
Like it's a swap. It's not a buff or nerf. It's just a change. Because there are times where I would much rather have her the way she is now, and there are times where I would much rather have her the old way, right? But if I see a 3-speed and I can one-tap them, that's nice. Mm-hmm. If I can guarantee that all the time, and the higher damage, if I hit an arm or something, that higher damage is pretty neat. I don't know, like it's not gonna matter, right?
Yeah,
let's be fair.
I don't think it's huge personally.
It really isn't. If you hit your shot with Callie, she does owie, and if you don't hit your shot, you're dead.
Yeah.
And that's how she should be, because otherwise she would be too strong.
Yeah.
I think that personally, on your point, Jess, like I think that if you're looking for feedback on how to make the game fun from the pros, that is the wrong type of feedback to get from the pros, because
for fun.
I mean, those guys, they play a completely different game. They grind it. They go, they have 8-hour boot camps where they're dry running. Like the game, like for them, for the game to be fun, it's just a completely different experience to what the 99% of the players are experiencing. The feedback I appreciate from the pros are where I think they really are right more than the average player is when it comes to tweaks and when it comes to how do we change something to go from what they view as something that might be broken or something, how do we get it to a better place? And then that's where I think they are experts, and I think that that's where they're really qualified to give good feedback. But if you're going to a pro and you're saying, hey, you said on Twitter that this game's not fun, what can we do to fix that? That's the wrong. You're gonna ostracize 99% of the players in order to accommodate them from what they want.
I don't think any devs will ever look at it that way either, right?
No, I agree.
When they hear feedback from comp or from high, like it doesn't, like we keep saying pros, but even like low tier comp players or high tier ranked players, right? Whenever you get feedback from them, you're not looking for them to figure out how the game's fun. What they're good at is pointing out issues. They're really bad at coming up with solutions. But we all are. We think we're, God's gift to game development, but we actually have absolutely almost no clue. And when it comes to like numbers and how it will trickle down and what the impact actually will be once things change, we're really bad at predicting that. That's maybe why Chenka outrage was so insanely disproportionate, or Kali. I think we've seen quite a few of those and maybe learned it that we need to like prove that things are too strong before we freak out.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of positive circle jerk reinforcement on anything. So as soon as someone says Chichenka's OP, a video comes out of some doofus spawning into custom games with 20 HP, right? And shooting fireballs up in the sky. And now there are things on Twitter saying, oh my god, you can spawn peek with this. What? How's that ever like why didn't everyone just laugh?
You can do that with smoke too.
Yeah. I mean, like, come on, right? That's not an issue. I think they should with competitive feedback. What you need to worry about, and what I hope that I'm pretty sure that's what they do as well, is that they go on and say we can abuse this character in this and this way. If you don't look into these values, we will break the game.
That's what they ask. That's what, I'll be honest. That's what,
Exactly.
When I tested Canal, they looked at me and said, find every spawn peak you can. And I was like, me? Because I love spawn.
Yeah, break it.
Like, I'll find a window. Don't worry, girlfriend. Like, let me run at it. And I'm like, and we're trying to jump out windows. And we're trying to see what the angle exists for the spawn. And we're doing all that. And sweet. God, that was a messy map. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's what they're asking with the operators. I can't remember very well. Maps I remember pretty vividly, but operator-wise, I can't remember because they were mostly just watching, you know what I mean? They wanted to see how the interaction between operators occurred and how we were creative with it or, otherwise. And that's pretty much my experience with it. What I understand, though, is that, and there's that one comment that floats around that people say that they don't care what the pros say, and that's an absolute lie. Through and through, because how many playtests they do and how many iterations it goes through and how many bits of feedback that it does end up going through, how many different groups, that's ridiculous.
Listen, if they didn't care about the pros, they wouldn't have Pro League.
Yeah.
It's not like that thing is like flooding money everywhere, right?
They're so bad.
If they didn't care about it, they simply wouldn't have Pro League.
Yeah.
So for everyone that's dense enough to think that they just don't care, just think about why that thing exists in the first place.
I think these patch notes are very pro favored. Like, I think these patch notes are for the most part a reflection of what the pros wanted. The buck change, I really feel like that. I don't feel like that will have any impact on the average player. I don't think that the average player is going through Buck's shotgun ammo. But I think that the pros, absolutely, this will have an impact on him. I think that the addition of hard breach will add to his versatility, and I agree with the change.
Yeah.
Can I just say how much
if being honest, if you're a casual player listening to this, that example right there is actually what most of the pro influence changes result in. Something that they can use that will help them and that won't negatively affect you. There are examples where that's not the case, where something that's good for Pro League does kind of have a negative effect on the average player, but it's extremely rare, really, when you think about it.
I saw Macy's tweet with Buck, and I'm so sad that I didn't respond with my horrible dad joke. But he said something about how beautiful it was that you had Heartbreach Gadget on Buck now, and then he places it on the hatch. And I really wanted to respond with, "Hey, dummy, it's a soft hatch. You can just shoot it open." and now in hindsight, I'm really sad I didn't do that. But it's cool that Buck gets that Heartbreach, and they buffed the Heartbreach, right? A second less. A second less to deploy and a second less to blow, I think.
Yep.
Half a second or full second?
A full second.
Full second.
Full second, I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's all these like sites, right? So 1.5 away from Lesion, blah blah blah.
I agree with all of them. Lesion does not need a 1.5. Lesion,
I don't mind any of them.
Whenever they introduced the 1.5 on Lesion, I felt like I was cheating. I was kind of like, I'm not gonna complain about this because I really like Lesion, but I can't believe they gave this to him. That was like my reaction.
He was already okay. I think the problem was, and I'm gonna be the one to point out the elephant in the room because everyone knows that the elephant is in the room. They nerfed Lesion necessarily. They had to. His goo mines were too powerful in multiple situations for all of the playing cohort. So top to bottom, they needed to fix him, no problems. They made it so that it was less easy to use, blah, blah, blah. And then they turned around, which we have slowly seen the evolution happening, and they admitted it in the patch notes, not last, but the ones before, that they want to try and give certain sites to certain operators to balance them. Those were the exact words, and that now balancing is occurring around sites. You give Lesion the 1.5 because you nerfed him. His pick rate kind of went down. Some people kind of moved off onto other operators as they were introduced. Other flex operators were a little bit more easy to use or more relevant now, whatever it might be. And now they're going to take it away from him. His pick rate will go down a little bit, right? Just naturally. But what they're going to do by him not having the 1.5 and seeing the pick rate go down is they're going, oh, we achieved it. I'm sorry, but no. That's not, if you're looking to just slow down the pick rate of someone, you're forgetting the whole win delta's purpose. Like you're just going, okay, they pick it less. Like that is not, the fact that we are taking a site and going, you can have that one and you can have that one and you can have that one, because I think it makes you a little bit stronger and you a little bit weaker, and I like that you do this and you can look at that, or you zoom too far, so we'll just take that one off you and you could just have the holographic. I mean, at the end of the day, we all started, like if you played the game when we started playing the game, you all had holographic or ACOG. You had super zoomy boy, or you had, okay, if you're playing 4-3, you get a bit of a zoom with your holographic, or, you know, you got to kind of get a little closer to your monitor. We all started that way anyway. So if you're an original player, these 1.5s were just a nice middle ground, right? So now you're trying to balance off something that's like a quality of life thing.
Let me catch up. What are you trying to say that site changes don't really have an impact, or that they need to change?
That using that as a balancing tool on an operator when most of it is quality of life is an incorrect way of looking at an operator's balancing. It is not appropriate.
I think, like, everyone's going to have their own opinion on that, but I frankly don't think that's true if we look at Doc. Doc?
Yeah. I can see Rook and Doc being the two operators where their purpose of taking was that. So I can absolutely
agree with that. They got
slammed,
right? Like, Doc went from being the pick to he's kind of a unicorn at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's like finding chicken teeth.
Yeah. No, I will admit that. They were the two.
So there's definitely some there's 100% some things where it has a massive impact removing sites. I think the good thing about them doing it is that it's so easy to swap the sites forward and back, because now they've made this little riser thing. Basically, when we tested the 1.5 to start with, there was no riser for it, right? So if you had it on the UMP, it was looking straight into the ion side, and it didn't work on all guns. Now the way the skeleton is built up on all the guns, they can swap all sites with an on-off switch.
Okay.
So it's super quick for them to try any site they want on weapons, and sometimes it isn't the goal to make an operator less good, it's just to make them less played. Like that is in every single game. There are things that are a little too strong, and all you want to do is have them played a little less, because you want them to be strong, or the nerf that you could possibly do to them would be too big. Like with Lesion, for example, it's really difficult to give him some sort of nerf and keep his pick rate up, that wouldn't have too big of an impact. If we do, 1 damage less per tick, that will mean nothing.
Yeah.
If we do 2 to 3, that might mean way too much, then people might just ignore it. If we give him 2 less mines, well, that might do a lot to people like wanting to pick him, but it's not going to do a lot to how strong he is, because the good players are just going to place them better. So like there's so many. I think there's too many balancing metrics in Siege to go in and say they need to change something else. Like with Melusi, for example.
Well, I don't think he needs change. That's my argument. I'm saying that, the argument that a lot of people are having about the sites is more around the fact that we're nitpicking who gets what. And that's okay for some operators that were being taken for the purpose of spawn killing and stuff like that, which is an entirely separate issue, right? That whole spawn, I'm going to not even include that in the conversation. I'm talking about normal engagements that are not spawn peak related, rather. They're going, okay, you can have this, you can have this, you can have Cybertruck, gross holo, rather than a normal holo. I'm so sorry, developers, whoever came up with that. My sincere apologies. It's just really awful.
Don't apologize for that. It's a shit side in real life as well.
There you go. It is honestly awful. And the fact that I logged in my other account and it had the thing on the UMP. Oh, God, I just wanted to quit then. Alt F4, get out. I was done. But the fact that we have that as a way, which was initially given to us, told as balancing. If they had to turn around and they said, well, actually what we want to do is spread these different types of sites around multiple operators. Some will have angle grips, some won't, some this, some that, so on and so forth. But it wasn't related to the balancing to begin with. I don't think people would have connected the negativity of the balancing with it, because now every change that comes henceforth will be associated with the fact that we think they're balancing it, which is what they continue to say by it, which unfortunately is still being related.
I think that what you guys are talking about here is probably the most important question facing the balance of Siege moving forward. And I think that you can show multiple examples of it. And I think that the final answer that I'll give is that it's just got to be done on a case-by-case basis. Zeronic, you mentioned the change to Doc. That had the complete desired effect. Wouldn't you say? Like, removing ACOG from Doc had the exact desired effect that they wanted. But giving Melusi the MP5 and taking away the T5 did nothing. I would say that did not have the desired effect. So you can look at that and you can say, it's a case by case basis. That's really all you can say. I do think it's a little bit like I've probably mentioned this before, but like Dokkaebi, for example. Like, if you're looking at Dokkaebi, I can make the argument that she has maybe the strongest or close to the strongest and most oppressive utility on attack. The ability to make anybody's phone ring, unless you're standing on top of a mute jammer at any given time, is really strong. If Dokkaebi had even an average AR, like let's say Sledge's L85, isn't that what it is? Mm-hmm. Let's say an average AR. If Dokkaebi had that, her pick rate would be. I would assume that her pick rate would probably be in the top 5 of attackers. That's what I'm guessing. But she's not, because people don't feel comfortable with her weapons. So there is a world in which you can balance these operators with weapons and attachments, and it works in some cases, but not in other cases. And that's the real problem facing the developers that have to make these decisions, in my opinion.
I think it's completely fair and viable to balance either based on weaponry or based on gadgets. I think things can have overpowered weapons but shit gadgets, and overpowered gadgets but shit weapons. I'm completely fine with that. Or they can have mediocre. The thing I don't get is, like, if something changes, why it always has to be like a war where it seems like the whole community is arguing about why the devs did it. If they just tell us how they or why they did it, why can't we just go, oh, okay, that's why you did it. Fair enough. We might not agree, but like, we come up with our own arguments sometimes for why they did what they did. That seems weird. Doc was a good example, right? Doc, the ranked hero, that was not his intended use, blah, blah, blah. They didn't want him that way. I thought he was hilarious to play that way, and I'm sad he lost ACOG. But sure, I get it. Doc, maybe a little too strong with nades. They took it away. Everyone was losing their shit. But, I mean, it worked. There's less Buck now, I guess, right? So if that was the intent, if they wanted less Buck, that was a good change. I still miss nades and Buck. But like they come up with what they want, and then they change something, and if it goes that direction, then that's surely a good change, at least in like the game development's book, right? If you take Melusi, she got the MP5 and everyone was like, oh, that's a massive nerf. Then they realized there was angle grip and they're like, oh, this is actually a buff.
Yeah.
What now? Okay, so now they take angle grip away and they're saying, oh, but it's not good enough now. Before changing to the MP5, if there was no angle grip, would have been fine. Or would have been a big nerf, and people were saying that, ooh, well, then we'll play her less now because she has a shit gun. Because on dock, using that gun without an ACOG is not that fun.
No.
Right? So how is that all of a sudden a super trooper weapon on Melusi if the angle grip goes away? Like, I get it. I hate beaming on Melusi.
We're bringing Melusi for her utility, not her weapon.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
I agree.
But it's funny that every time we see people play Melusi, it's always the fragging dudes running around gobbling everywhere, right? It's not the smart anchor boy.
Which is a completely different argument, which I won't go down that road. But she's got to set and forget, and set and forget gadgets enforce this playstyle of, I put that down.
Yeah.
I don't really
Jager.
have to protect it. I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm kind of a speedy girl, so catch you all later. I'm going to go up the left.
Had that with Jager since year one, right?
You know what I mean?
And then you go, fuck you guys.
I even have impacts for like running around, opening things. You know what I mean? Like, I still truly believe that set and forget operators. Even a Maestro is a good example of a set and forget, because I put it there and I go all the way over in archives, I hide in a corner, I go, haha, maybe I'll get on these cams, maybe I'll do this, and maybe I'll just go peek somewhere if I want to. Maybe my dead player can watch the Maestro cams if I want. So there are problems with set and forget gadgets, but the fact that she's so fast and she had an angle grip, yes, paired together in that, if you disregard the gadget as its whole, then yes, that was strong. And if they were nerfing that part of her, then I agree angle grip is the right thing to get rid of. I absolutely agree, because if there's an angle grip on a gun, I will absolutely take it 9 times out of 10. That thing is great to have on a weapon. But
I'd rather they make her...
She's OP because of her gadget.
I'd rather they make her 1 speed and then keep her gadget, because...
Sure.
If we start... Like, this Siege thing with neutering things, like, we're playing Siege because of gadgets.
Yes, I agree. Well,
Arguably everyone ran away from another shooter to get here because we have gadgets and destruction. If they start changing that, you're going to get a really shitty CS, because Siege without destruction and gadgets is really bad.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zeronic, but I do think that you could make the argument that they leaned a little too heavily on bulletproof gadgets in a row. Like, it was like no bulletproof gadgets existed in the game, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, well, this is like the 4th operator that you guys have introduced in the last year that has a bulletproof gadget, plus the bulletproof cameras. That's a bit much, you know.
Sure.
But I do agree. Like, I agree. Like, if they would have introduced Melusi as a 1 speed with the MP5 and no angled grip, I think we'd be having a much different conversation right now.
She'd probably not even be played. People are like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is like shitty barbed wire and a bed up.
Because I mean, you could make the argument, like, I mean, even Capkin in a lot of ways is somebody who you could say, like, has, you know, really strong utility, and you don't see him a ton. I don't know. But
Fuse is the gold standard of having amazing utility that is too dangerous to use.
Yeah.
Fuse is almost a perfectly made operator. His gun is bustedly strong. He's way too slow. His gadget is insanely good, but it's way too dangerous to use.
It's like seesaw just going the whole time.
When it works out for you, you feel fantastic. When it doesn't work, you feel like such a moron.
I didn't pick him voluntarily. I do just want to say it was an operator choice thing from the chat. So I got a Fuse. And obviously it's on the OP map where you should use him, Coastline. So, yeah.
So I think the last thing from the patch notes or win delta that I wanted to kind of mention would be Jager. I still sit in the camp that Jager received a nerf. I think that Jager received a nerf in 9 out of 10 situations. I realize there are some situations where you could stack all 3 and you could call it a buff in that situation. But in 9 out of 10 situations for the average player, I think that Jager received a nerf. We look at the win delta and it is no change whatsoever. What say you guys?
How many operators?
Jager does the same thing.
Yes.
That's what so people have issues with stand and shit. And you mentioned set and forget. I have problems with things deleting skill. And okay, maybe I'm a little bit biased when it comes to grenades because that is the only way that I can get any kills. But if I throw a good grenade, that shit should blow up. It shouldn't be out of the sky. That is so annoying. You see a shield, you're like, I have the utility, I can deal with this. You shoot it, it goes, what the hell? At least when Wamai takes it, it flies somewhere else, and then it might blow up some wire or do damage or something. That's why I'm so pissed when, I will 100% say that make Jaeger just take non-destructive gadgets or non-explosive gadgets, then we good. That's it. Sap flashbangs, smoke grenades, like everything that isn't an explosive. And then have Wamai only take explosives. Do that. If you want to combo them, they're still strong. If you don't combo them, Jaeger will stop you from getting blinded and you can still run away and move around from grenades. He will stop smoke takes, candelas, stuff like that. But you shouldn't be able to place an ADS and then have it stop a flash, peek out, fight a little, wait 10 seconds, now it stops a nade. And like that constant thing of the first person tests if there is anything, right? So you throw your first flash. Okay, there's an ADS. Now you get into a fight, one of them dies. Now the guy with a nade has to burn one ADS with a nade and has to throw the second. Maybe there's two ADSs. It's too much of a trial and error thing. And then sure, we can go say drone it out. But then you just have to remember I'll pull that argument for everything else in Siege ever. Just drone it. Bullet holes, nope, we're not removing them. Just learn how to drone. That's my problem with Jaeger. It's the deletion of stuff with no impact.
You know, the fact that you bring that up, it's actually funny that you don't bring up my biggest problem with Jaeger, because I know you're a big advocate for him to be banned and stuff like that.
I hate him.
Yeah, I know, and I love it, right? And I actually thought you'd align with me really well on this. Is my biggest pet peeve, and it's almost every time I play Coastline, I'm almost always the dedicated frag grenade holder on that map. And generally because, you take sledge, you get soft breach as well. And I love that combination that you have. And I'm on the roof and I'm like, the trouble is, if I don't time it to a T, that defender on Cool Vibes, who's getting that smoke or that flash coming down to cook the ADS first, is getting an indicator I'm about to use something. They are getting all of the intel. And ADS, so therefore the ADS is not just a deletion tool, it is also an intel tool. And he also has a carbine. And he's also decently okay as a 2 armor. And I just feel like I'm saying end all over again with him. That's why he stayed highly picked. Because if I'm behind Sunrise Bar and my ADS goes shh, I'm like, all right, see ya.
Yeah.
I also think you're at a point where I think we're slowly proving that I truly do not think 3 speeds are as strong as people think.
I agree.
Because Jaeger's fine. 2 speed or 3 speed doesn't matter. It also doesn't really matter if Jaeger's gun is doing the damage it does now or the damage it used to do. Or if it has an ACOG. Like, that's not really the issue. We tend to hover around characters that have weapon platforms that we're comfortable with in all of the games, and I 100% believe that this is true. People are more likely to play operators with AKs and M4s. They just are.
Yep.
100%. On top of that, sure, set it forget. When you say that it's an indicator in 2 ways. Because it also tells you how many people are minimum there.
Right.
If someone is flashing to burn your ADS, you know there's 2 people.
Yeah.
Right? And it didn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
You can just walk away.
Yep.
But again, like, if it didn't delete it, if it knocked it out of the way somewhere else, can you imagine you actually had to think about where you put that ADS because it might shoot the grenade over in the other end of the room and kill your mirror?
Yeah.
Or if it only stopped flashbang, so if you throw a grenade in, well then yoink.
I would even be happy if it only stopped secondary gadgets. And then the primary gadgets, any primary gadget like a lifeline or a yin candela, it would have no effect on. My explanation with Jaeger is that at the end of the day, he is still the most effective defender at dealing with attacker projectiles. And attacker projectiles are like the name of the game on attack. Like,
Let's be fair, no one's picking him for that, except for in
that?
comp. No one's picking him for that, except for in comp.
I disagree. I mean, I'm playing Plat. If I pick Jaeger, I'm picking him for his gadget mostly. I would rather play.
Same.
I'd rather play a Vigil if I'm roaming personally.
I think we're really bad examples for what most people do.
Yeah, okay,
Sure.
we are not the right.
And I really don't think we should use ourselves as well. I do it because, that like, if I play Jaeger, the ADS is down to protect something. Sure, when I'm playing against Jaeger, it's very rare that those ADSs are in very meaningful places.
I've been playing a lot of Ying, and I can tell you, like, there's been a lot of situations where I'm throwing a Candela, it gets zapped, and then I have to, throw the second one. I don't know. At the end of the day, like, where I was going with that is I think, and it's too late now, the cat's already out of the bag, but I think that if you could go back in time and if you would have given attackers utility that wasn't projectile based earlier at an earlier state in the game, like, why don't we have more drone based utility that you can throw in through? You can throw a drone through a window and an ADS will have 0 impact. So what if I have an EMP drone? You know what I mean? Where I throw it through a window, the ADS does not impact it whatsoever. I drive it over where I want and I detonate it. There's the EMP. I don't know. I'm just
because you want to stay on your gun.
That's the
people
trouble.
don't.
Yeah.
People don't like playing operators where look at Twitch.
Yeah.
Most Twitch players don't even like being on their drone. They'll go in and sap once. And
I was going to say, name a Twitch player that uses their utility properly outside of. I'm thinking 2 Pro League players that I've seen recently use them probably what I would call at an appropriate level of Twitch droning.
If you're, I think the problem is that if you're in spawn doing anything on your drone, you're arguably, I wouldn't say useless, but you're too late to the party. And if you go up close to the wall and you're doing anything on your drone, there's a good chance that your teammate dies, and now you're kind of stuck in this like fumbling mess of getting out of your drone and hope that you don't get run out on. I'm a massive fan of adding more like interactive gadgets into the game, but the idea of like pulling something up and sitting like this in the middle of the map terrifies me.
But I mean, you do that already with drones, like right now.
Right.
Yeah, and people don't like doing it.
Yeah. There is not a lot of good droners out there. Like if you've ever solo queued or even duo queued or trio queued, I mean, I have a friend that I literally bring into my stack because she is one of the best droners and is happy to drone in and hotcall and has the best callouts and comms I've ever heard in my life. And
always buy them candy, by the way.
And I always bring him in because I know for a fact she will drone and she will get us in and she will make very accurate calls and we will get in, we'll get the job done that we need to get done, whether it's utility, killing, whatever it might be. If I'm the one that has to get on the drone and do that, I feel like I can't particularly trust that a trade or a refrag is going to occur, that there is enough people to undertake the job upon which I am droning in to do that thing, or that it's not going to get acted upon the way that I would, naturally, bias, would act upon it being gun up or gadget up or hand up or whatever like that, because I am drone enhanced. You are absolutely right. Drones are very valuable. They're like gold, as a pro player, once called it to me. And they are like gold, I agree. But you got to be a very special person to enjoy and idealize being on them more often than not.
I guess at the end of the day, if the majority of attacker utility is projectile based, whoever on defense can deal with those projectiles is going to be picked a lot.
Ash has 3 Ash charges. Hello when they announced that, I was like, what the?
They could just stop calling it projectile based, right? Because if like there's a difference between me throwing a grenade and a grenade shot out of a launcher.
Yep.
Like surely they're like.
What's the difference between throwing a drone and throwing a grenade?
No. What I'm saying, Dylan, is that like you're saying that because it's something that catches projectiles, that's just some arbitrary value that's added to it. Like nothing says that can't change, right? Like Hibana's pellets.
Right.
They managed to go past just fine.
Right. Okay. I'm following you now. So you're saying that
there's just a value on each gadget where it says can be stopped by ADS, yes, no.
Yeah.
It's a tick box, right? So just turn some of them off.
Yep.
Right? But then we got to be careful because Twitter might lose their shit and be like, oh, it's passives. Some things go past, some things don't, right? And we need it as a balancing metric.
That's quite a complex thing to learn as well. You got to think about the learning factor of that as well.
Sure.
Which
now shit gets difficult.
We love to learn, but
so maybe keep it to things that go boom, don't get stopped, or things that go fast, don't get stopped. Maybe Jaeger's ADS isn't fast enough to capture an ADS or an Ash charge. Maybe that's the reason behind it. But things that you throw out of your little hands are slow enough for it to shoot them. Right?
There's some logic behind it, yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of like gameplay logics, like the idea of red barrels go boom, that they could add into it to make sense of it. Where when I do something, I realize, okay, Jaeger stops the slow things. That makes sense, right? But like for me, I'm super confused why an Ash charge gets sapped by Bandit, but a Sophia charge doesn't. That makes no sense in my eyes at all.
The only form of logic I can use to explain that is that the Ash charge technically has to land, drill in, and then explode.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's still not like something that I think electricity would influence. I don't.
I mean, realism doesn't matter. It's the gameplay idea of the one thing can hit it and go bang without any damage. The other thing just gets destroyed.
Yeah,
it doesn't even like fall down and go bang.
I mean, me as an experienced player, I mean, I'm not going to say very recently, but I know before in my lifetime, I have shot an Ash breaching round directly at a Maestro Evil Eye and watched it bounce off and not do anything. You know what I mean? Like, whereas with Zofia, that would have been disintegrated, you know?
Yeah.
So I agree 100% with what you're saying there.
But yeah, I mean, like, it doesn't bother me because I've played enough that sure, we know, right?
Yeah.
But if I was new coming in,
yeah.
If someone tries to explain it to me, I was literally gonna sit there with like my jaw on the floor and go, why? Like, why? How am I ever gonna figure this one out? Like, it makes no sense.
You're gonna laugh. I did it with 2 Ash charges today, but my excuse was I was trying to shoot them shallow to the shield, and it just twice I just overdid it because you're trying to quick peek when you're doing it because you know they're quick peeking the shield at the same time, so you're trying to do things quickly, and I just hit it twice, and I thought to myself, you look like a rookie, like you don't know what you're doing. And
imagine if your third got taken by an ADS, you would have punched your monitor.
If the third had got taken by the ADS, because you've got 10 seconds to play with, I know, like, it's just, you know, one, and I know this segues it a little bit, well, one thing I like that they've added recently is reactivation through risk. The Surya Gate is the best example of that, and if the ADS required you to come over and reactivate it, would that change your mind?
That's a good point.
To some extent, it would make it so much better for everyday use, but it would make it insanely annoying to deal with in comp.
For the defenders or the attackers or both?
Attackers. If we say that it insta, like there, because I don't think you should have a hidden cooldown when you pick things up. Because hidden cooldowns when they're in your inventory suck to display. It's really difficult. Like if I have 2, and there's a cooldown on the one I picked up, do I place the one that I had in my inventory that doesn't have a cooldown, or does the cooldown become global and stack on the one that I had that was fine?
You can't pick it up if it's deactivated.
Okay, but
deactivated, it is dead to pick up, but you could press a button to reactivate that ADS. Once it's in a reactivated state, it is in a state upon which it can be picked up.
See, I would be really happy if they do that with Jaeger because I think he would become almost useless at that point.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. The Surya Gate idea is great because the amount of times I've heard it go shh, and I go, there's my opportunity. I know someone's about to quick peek this, looking up at it to shoot it and reactivate it. I'm good to probably take an engagement here. And people have taken the risk and lost out on it as a result.
But that one is ranged. That's why it works in my book, at least. If you had to run up to it,
then it's intense. That's insanely intense. So
I would never reset it.
To take the Aruni Gate,
no way.
What would you think if you could play the Aruni Gates like that by default? So when you set it up, you would have the option of leaving it open without the lasers coming down, and then me as the anchor, I can decide when I want to activate it.
then you only get one activation. That is your risk.
Okay.
I would
So
not
then if
allow
I-
that to be.
And then
Yeah.
they cancel it.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
And-
you can activate it whenever you want, but that's it. That's your go-to.
You can do it with an Elamine or any other gadget if you're sneaky. You throw it so it covers the laser, and you shoot that, and it only activates after.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah.
Dude,
Big brain.
you
Big
can
brain.
actually do it with a lot of things. You can do it with ADSs as well. You place them next to the doorway on the corner. They block the laser gate. They throw something through. ADS goes poof. You shoot the ADS, and now the Aruni gate is locked.
However you want to stack it, right? Whatever came of this, you know what I mean? Whatever gameplay mechanics or thoughts or creativity came from it, I would love to see. You need to test it. But I guarantee the first time I saw those Syria gates work with me, test server, and I went, oh shit. If I want to use this to its full effectiveness, because let's be honest, me throwing or someone throwing one drone or one flash in through it and it's gone, and now they have full access, and I've used an entire operator for this one sort of denial area, and I want to reactivate it, but I have to peek an entire door, and I know they're there because they've disabled it. That was huge to me. This now reactivation mechanic that's in the game has so much potential. I think people are skidding around the fact that it has potential. ADSs could be reactivated, but you have to be within 1 meter of that bitch. Oh my god, go to Pixel and get in 1 meter of that bitch. You are gone. I am getting you. You are getting sniped. See you later. What my discs catches it, destroys. Okay, all right. Well, mine's good. Let his disc destroy. We don't need a reactivation. Other gadgets, however, yeah, let's go with the reactivation, because that kind of seems like the play with this, because we don't want to destroy it, but we also don't want to take away too many, but we also don't want to, okay, give it reactivation. Force them to make the dangerous decision to go to that thing or to engage with it somehow, some way. That's what
I think they should do that with Maestros, right?
Reckon?
If a Maestro gets sapped or EMP'd, I think it should permanently stay open. It still works fine.
Oh, I agree.
But I think it should be permanently open for the rest of the round.
I agree.
Because if you place Maestro Chem and Twitch saps it, but you just have them looking up, while it's a cool mechanic and like it's not skillful, it's just knowledge.
Yeah.
Once they get sapped, I think they should stay open for the rest of the time.
Yep.
And then
I would
because
agree.
it puts a little bit of pressure on, get something out of them right now, right? Like now you start sapping every drone and you start sapping whatever you can, and then you lose your Maestro Chem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Maybe it'll force them further back to site as well.
And it doesn't nerf him too much, because guess what, folks? You can reactivate the glass.
Yeah,
you just got to
pick it
go
up.
over there.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think you've got a great point. Do you guys want to move on to the code of conduct that came out today? Are we happy with the balancing topics? Okay. I guess this literally just went live before we went live today. Rainbow Six Siege put out a code of conduct that outlines different, I would say, different things that you can do as a player to that they don't allow. Basically, I don't know how else to explain it. There's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, there's your normal stuff like don't cheat. There's stuff in there about stream sniping though, and you know. I mean, it explicitly says in there that stream sniping is against the code of conduct. There's a lot of information there. I encourage anybody to seek it out and make yourself familiar with it. What did you guys think as far as the code of conduct?
How do I put this the best possible way? There's absolutely nothing in this that isn't already in TOS.
Thank you.
Not a single thing.
What do you think the purpose of it is then? Because I agree.
I think this is literally Dad saying, "I've told you once. Next time you're out."
Okay.
This is the little annoying teenage kid about to get kicked out because he doesn't clean his dishes, and he's been told many times now. I can't see what else it is. It says in TOS, it's like any fucking reasonable person realizes that you're probably not allowed to cheat in video games, right? Like, wait, where is it here? It's under don't cheat! Exclamation mark. That's a don't.
The exclamation mark, that's the kicker for me.
Also don't exploit or glitch, and don't have a third-party malicious software running in the background. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
damn
okay,
it, Ubisoft. Oh, now I'm going to have to close my third-party software.
don't take it the wrong way. I'm happy that they put it out. I think it's ridiculous that it's necessary. This is probably why I will never get a job in community stuff, because I think that is ridiculous. I think what they should have done is just manually banned 1,000 people and made a statement. Be like, you know what, you've broken the rules enough. Fuck off.
Yeah, that would have done something, I reckon.
But that's probably why I'm not the one doing it, because I would have enjoyed it way too much.
Yeah.
So this probably, like, the only way I read this is the last final warning. Now, if you do get yoinked for something, if you get banned for stream sniping now you can't be mad at anyone anymore, right? It was already in TOS. It's on Twitch as TOS. There's plenty of, like, it's also, I think, it's like taught as at a very young age under the moral code of don't be an asshole. Like, there are so many ways that you know that you're doing it wrong, right? This has to just be like, it's just a notice letter of.
I'm two ways about it, right? And my sort of criminology brain kicks in here, because every time I thought something was common sense, right? Common sense is not very common, but every time I thought something was common sense or logic in my industry back then, everyone would turn around and go, no, that is not how we behave in this industry. We behave on the 5 rules of everyone's, got an inability to understand logic, an inability to understand common sense, inability to understand risk and safety in themselves, an inability, and this is the things that you base upon when you give warnings or you give understandings of law, or you so on and so forth. And that's what it's based off, that someone does not have the comprehension to understand that something is right or wrong and what the spectrum is on that. So my worry is that they've had to turn around and go for the base level gamers who have been, and mind you, I had someone come to my stream today and say that exact thing. Well, you stream. You're inviting stream snipers. Why don't you just set a longer delay? And I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you just say that again? By the way, I'm an angel because it's becoming.
I don't believe anyone, like, I refuse to believe that anyone unironically asks that question. They have to be a troll. But I always tell them I'm gonna answer them in 5 minutes and explain why it's a bad idea. And then they go, why do I have to wait 5 minutes? Because there's the delay on. What do you mean?
It blows my mind that people think that because something exists, it therefore promotes such and such behavior, and because it is not actively given consequences to, it is okay to undertake that behavior. And that exists in all walks of life, naturally. So my problem with this is that they've turned around and they've gone, well, if someone does tell you that, it's a thing, you can point them to this brand new document, which have a really recent date on it. And we say, this is a big no-no. You can't do this. It's part of the TOS, so on and so forth. The trouble is, if you break down the psychology of it, the do and don't is not tough enough. It doesn't say you cannot do this. It says, please don't.
That's true.
Yeah, that's actually true. It does read very.
It reads incorrectly on a psychological level.
This looks very soft.
Yeah. It reads like you got a pamphlet on, like you're getting ready to go skydiving, and they say do this, and you know what I mean? Don't do this. Like that's what it reads like. Maybe skydiving is
feed the monkeys.
Whitewater rafting, maybe.
Like you're in Japan. They're like, oh, preferably don't feed the monkeys. Or you're in Australia, and like, preferably don't feed the koalas because, like, they have their own food and stuff like that. And you're like, yeah, but it's like coming towards me, and like it's kind of cute. You know what I mean? People are like, yeah, but she has a stream, and I'm like, on the other team, and that seems like a bit of freelo.
It should probably have been written in more of a way of, like, this will be the final warning. If you get caught doing this or this or this, we will sanction your ass.
Yeah.
Let me throw another possibility at you. What if this is in preparation for the reputation system rolling out and some potential ramifications to people who have been acting a certain way over the last whatever time? And they released this, they're saying, hey, the reputation system is getting ready to roll out, and some of the wording in there as far as the penalties that players can experience, like, it doesn't say like we're going to ban you. It could, like, it says you might lose access to some features.
Yep.
So what if this reputation system rolls out and there's a group of players who cannot queue for ranked, and this is why they are referring back. What if there's a group of players who cannot use voice chat? What if there's a group of players who are banned from text chat? You know what I mean?
Well, now you start getting the problem.
I'm hoping that this is why they're doing it.
If there are people that can't use voice chat because they've been banned from voice chat,
No, they should be banned overall.
yes.
Yeah.
If you're not like, I don't have an issue. So some people have issues with people not using voice chat. I know, like I
Oh,
think you made a tweet about it, Jess,
I
where
am
you were
very
streaming.
advocate. Yeah.
So I have a few issues with it. If I have voice chat on, and someone comes and slams DMCA music, I could get banned. So I'm not gambling that for someone in ring. Elo ain't worth my job. It's just not. So
You can mute them pretty quick, though. Grant, you're right.
doesn't matter.
In
Doesn't
the
matter.
real world, you can hit tab and then mute them pretty quick.
Doesn't matter. I can still get a DMCA for a 2-second clip. I can't go and argue against DMCA and be like, oh, but it was someone else. Like, that's not possible, right? We've had people get fucking DMCA'd for a wind sound, Dylan.
Oh, do you remember the police siren one? That's the banger for me. The police driving past, and it was someone's police siren sound, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
And the problem is, Twitch has a way where it's just 3 strikes and you're out, right? Like there is no arguing or anything. They've just decided that's how it is. If someone our size get that, there's nothing we can do because we frankly just aren't big enough for that. So if I put my headphones down for 2 seconds and someone on the team starts playing fucking AC/DC, I'm just slammed. So okay, I can mute them every time I go away, or I can just not have voice chat on, because frankly, it's very, very rare that the interactions are that good. It's normally just people really looking for attention the second they figure out you're streaming. If you're not, then they're fine. Like if I'm if I'm solo queued and I'm not streaming, which is fairly rare, I just have VoIP on and it's fine. There's no problem. The second they can get attention from stream, right? Then it's a little different. In those cases,
I don't know. Look, I agree, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to point on your point there about you being correct. There are certain areas of the playing.
what if you're Squeaker?
What's that?
What if you're Squeaker and you just get fucking bullied all the time? Like you can't keep banning the entire world just because people bully you. And you could go out and say, maybe you just gotta get used to it. That's your voice, man. You want to play with the big guys? That's how it is. Well, deal with it. What if you're a nervous wreck and you're about to break because everyone laughs every time you talk?
Let me throw an example of how I could justify a voice chat ban without being banned from the game.
Okay.
Let's say that you just have the most staticky mic in the world. And people have told you have a staticky mic, but you have not changed it. And you still are making call outs. And enough people have reported like this person for, we'll call it voice chat abuse, because that is what you have in the game that's available to you for reporting them. I could see a legitimate case for that person not being able to be to use voice chat, but still being able to play the game. Should they be able to queue ranked if they're voice chat banned?
Why should they be banned for having a bad mic if your argument is you can mute them? That arguably harms nobody.
I mean, I don't know. Like but I mean, there are games that have specific voice chat bans. Like that exists.
For abusive behavior, never for a static mic. How are you going to figure out what
I'm trying to think of a scenario where I could justify banning somebody for voice chat, but not necessarily needing to ban them from the game.
But I just don't believe that will ever happen because, like, how do you figure out if they have a new mic? What if they fixed it?
I know.
Like, behavior, right?
Okay, it's a bad example.
Okay. Bad example aside, right? And I'm going to throw this out there really quickly because I know that Lycan said he mutes everyone. He doesn't even communicate with people when he plays. There are a special part of the community that I will accept needs to.
I'm with old school Lycan.
Yeah, who is okay, and I would respect and understand muting their microphones and not engaging with their teammates on the way that I believe you should when you queue ranked, right? So I understand. I'm willing to make exceptions, absolutely, understanding that some people just cannot. Some women just refuse to and stuff like that. I have my own opinion about slowly needing to break the ice and get used to confidence and everything like that. That's a whole other issue. So yes, I can understand your perspective. I'm not denying that that's okay. Your idea, Flanked, of saying, is there some version of the reputation system that is coming up where someone gets voice chat banned? the only time someone should get voice chat banned is if it is abusive, highly toxic, etc., etc. It is completely unhelpful. It is slamming music or whatever it is, which I would count as griefing, because you're taking away someone else's sound, and therefore that is a version of griefing. If you're under any of those categories and you have enough reports that you are obviously a serial voice chat abuser, goodbye.
A serial voice defender.
Goodbye. That is it. There is no in between. There is no spectrum of consequences. You have broken TOS. Goodbye. Now, if that goodbye is goodbye from ranked, or that goodbye is goodbye from the game, that's another conversation. But should not be nothing in between that gives them the opportunity to go, well, I can still play. So now what I'm going to do is one bullet tap you and one bullet tap you, and now it's another thing and it's another thing, and you're not dealing with the issue at the core. That's my problem.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. The same if anyone ever gets a chat ban, I can't find a way where that chat ban shouldn't just make you not able to play.
I agree.
Because we can say maybe they didn't do anything harmful. Maybe they were just spamming the same letter over and over again. But if the entire community has to mute you because you're annoying, then maybe you should just go away. And I don't think it's that harsh. Like, no one is... You have to actively do something to get yoinked. Right? Like,
that's true.
If you just play and you aren't like... You have to go real far, man, to get banned.
I was going to say...
I banter a decent amount. Right?
Regarding that code of conduct, one thing that I wanted to point out to you guys, there was nothing mentioned in there about smurfing, which as I was reading it, I was like, okay, when's the smurfing part come? I didn't see anything in there as far as smurfing.
You won't get around it. I'm sorry to say, you just won't get around it. No matter what you do and how you attempt to prove it, you will not get around this. It is in every game that I've played for the past decade.
Yes, the couple of things they can do that does work is they can make sure to incentivize playing on one account. Make it worth it to stay on one account.
Sure.
I think really does that.
It helps a bit. Ranked will always encourage smurfing because people want to play with their friends in ranked and they really like stomping on other people and taking their stuff away. Sure. Like, people enjoy being a plat player and playing against silvers. They just do. And I don't know why, but it happens everywhere. Like, there's a reason that pop stomp exists as a term, right? Maybe they feel a bit better about themselves or something. Boosting, like, smurfing is only a problem when it's done to bother other people.
Yeah, I agree.
If you purposely drop your elo down to play against people that are worse than you, then it's a problem. If you're continuously running away or you're doing it on multiple accounts, like if we have a pro player that wants to be diamond on 10 accounts, that's not that bad of a thing. But if we have 100 people that look up to the pro player that all want to do the same thing, then it becomes a really bad thing. Because now we have a massive influx of people playing placement games that they shouldn't and that they're way too good for, and they end up taking spots that won't be overtaken by other people, and they can't keep those accounts active in the ecosystem of like the whole elo chain, right, or MMR chain. So that has a pretty negative impact. Overwatch's top 500 is a good example where you have like people that have 3 or 4 accounts in top 500. Like that wasn't the intent, right? It's to have the 500 best players, not to have 10 doofuses with 50 accounts. Like, that's not the goal. But I don't know how they're gonna fix it. They can use algorithmic, or they can use some sort of like account identifier, so you can see that if it's from the same Uplay login on the same PC, but the ranks are extremely different and it's something that happens season after season, then they can start giving a sanction. But at that point, like, what now if I'm sharing my PC with my little brother?
Yep.
And my little brother just sucks, right? Or my little brother's awesome and I suck. That would probably be more realistic. And then one day he plays on my account. Like, that doesn't harm anyone, right?
I agree.
It's wrong on paper, but it doesn't harm anyone. And we know that we would all be okay with, like, playing on our brother or sister's account. Like, there's no malintent there, right, at all. But if I start giving it out to my homeboy Jeff, who is, you know, triple champ and can one shot everyone, then it becomes an issue. Now it's boosting.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know,
There
man.
is
It's
boosting
such a
mentioned
difficult thing.
in the code of conduct, by the way. They do specifically mention boosting.
Yeah. But that's purchase.
Yeah. Yeah,
Of
it is. They do
purchase of
use that
game
word.
benefits, including but not limited to MMR boosting.
Did you guys want to talk about what you were mentioning before we went live as far as the caster that apologized to the player? Let's talk
sure.
about that, and we'll talk about the NA finals and the EU finals at the end here.
Okay, I'll set the scene. I guess this goes with the whole toxic behavior. So in Valorant, what just happened? I don't know, a couple of weeks ago or something. A team played. The commentator goes out and says something with X player has to perform better or something. The other caster goes, does that mean you're saying that they have to kick this player if they don't perform better? And it's all said tongue in cheek and it's fun. Like arguably the player did perform horribly, and the commentator mentioned it. The Valorant scene blew up, and this poor commentator, she had to do a 45-minute apology video for saying that a professional esport player or athlete played like dog shit. And I find it appalling that she has to make an apology, that anyone even cares, and that we have to feel bad. It's a sport. You're there to perform. If you don't perform, you get yoinked. You're not there because of feel good or happy thoughts or any, like, you're an asset for a team to win. If you're not filling that role, there's someone else that can take that spot, and then we can move on and we can all enjoy the sport. Like, I don't know how to say this in the best and nicest way, but your feelings really don't matter in that. They just don't. Like, it's fine that you're upset and that someone said you played bad, then either you go and prove it by playing better or you leave. Like, you don't get to decide that people tell you play okay when you don't. As a player. Just like when a commentator has a bad take on something or does something bad in the cast, the players can go out and say, oh, we wish that person knew more about it or something. Like, that seems to be completely fair game in most sports. The players can be rough on the commentators or the analysts or the viewers. But, if a commentator says that the player who dropped 0 kills for, 16 rounds in a row didn't do so well, their fifis get hurt. I just find that ridiculous.
It wasn't just the players that were upset, though, right? So I think that's an.
Oh, it was players, viewers, and everything, right?
That's what I mean. Like, there's an overarching issue of people taking offense on behalf of someone else as well. And I've been through.
I will say the player got angry.
Well,
the player even put out a tweet being upset about it.
See, that actually blows my mind that the player tweeted about the commentator bringing it up, because in any other esport, had they been an esport player before Valorant, or, I mean,
I have no idea.
Okay, so the context kind of matters there, because I can understand how a new esport player, like, let's say, for example, I'm going to bring up Joe, for example. You know what I mean? Like, I've criticized him a couple of times, and if Joe turned around because he's new into the tier 1, he turned around and go, oh, I think Jess is really critical of me, I would understand him saying that. But if Doki said it, I'd be like, shut up. Like, shut up. Like, no one cares.
I mean, sure, okay, maybe you'd be more understanding if he did, but for the rest of the world, they don't really care. Like, at the point you hit Pro League, you should be ready. Like, that, you should have media training. Like, if you join a Pro League team, your Twitter account should be fucking locked until you have media training.
I agree.
But the same goes for commentators.
Yeah.
Like, the second you join that thing, you should just not tweet until you understand that now you're like... now you can't be pissed at the world for saying that you didn't play well enough. You just can't. And the players will generally have a bigger backing. I was talking about it on stream yesterday. And it's fair that in Siege, for example, some of the commentators have much bigger fan bases than some of the players, but it's a bit rare if we compare it with other sports. But I don't think, like, take Tom Brady. There were people arguing for him getting yoinked after a poor performance in a game, right? And I'm pretty sure, I'm not good with sports, but I'm pretty sure he's like really good at what he does, right? But I don't think he's like going back to his couch and being like, oh my god, oh no, they said I didn't play well. Like, he knows if he didn't play well, right?
Right.
It doesn't bother them. Players shouldn't have the time or energy to sit and have feel bad tweets between games. If I was the org owner and were putting money in, and they go, oh, Jeff said I didn't do well in the game in between matches or right after a match, then like your priorities are fucked up, man.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be reacting to that. You shouldn't even read it.
Yeah,
Like, I guess that's another question. Why are you even listening to it? The commentator isn't commentating for you. That's for the viewer, right?
yeah.
And it's actually their job, and they're putting their integrity on the line as well. If they say you didn't do bad when you did bad, then why should we trust them?
Yeah. That I and you know how I sit on this, because when I first joined the talent team, I was one of those people that said it like it was. If someone played bad, I said it. If someone played good, I said it. There was no stopping. There was
Actually,
no buffer.
I can open a little behind the curtains thing on this one. I remember being in a meeting where there was a conversation. So this wasn't forced. This was an actual conversation between people. None of us were asked, don't do this or do this, just before people start making things out of it that it wasn't. But there was a real conversation about how hard we were allowed to be on players and teams. And I remember certain people going, oh, you can't just talk about them doing bad in this. You have to always say that they also did good here. And I'm not going to bring anyone else into it, but I at least said, I think that is fucking ridiculous. If a team does really bad, I think it's completely okay to say that they did really bad. It's not an attack on them. It has nothing to do with that. But there has to be, like, it has to be okay to set the standard that they underperformed. We expected more. They didn't deliver. Boo-hoo. Let's hope they do better next time, right? But there were some that went out and said, no, I think we always have to, encourage a bit, or we have to say that,
I think the words were, and I'm going to get as close to verbatim as I can, we should always start with a positive. And with someone like me, very critical and used to be a coach and an analyst in a team, if someone had 80% wrong and 20% good, you bet your ass the 80% is far more important to me than that 20%. I'm so sorry if the first thing I bring up is the biggest, most critical part of that team's play that day. And if it happens to be negative because it's part of the 80%, then I would love to be positive, penny, but they didn't give me positive penny. They didn't give me the gear, the resources to be positive penny on the desk or be positive penny on the color casting.
If you lose every round, then what positive are you going to bring out? Oh, well, they tried.
That
right?
You and I are very aligned on that. You and I disagreed vehemently that was not a conversation that needed to be had. And I even questioned myself, because when you join a talent team, you sign your first full-time contract and stuff, you're always trying to feel out what's good, what should you do, what should you not do, so on and so forth. And you're trying to fit within the bounds of what's right? Not that there's any right. And I felt that the conversation that was had there was trying to box me into a personality and a way of being an analyst and a caster that I just simply was not. And in fact, people liked me for my critical takes on teams because I pulled apart stuff that people either didn't know or thought was something they didn't want to say because maybe it was a little too critical or too harsh or whatever it was, it might have been. And that was my brand. And I felt I had to back up, pull the brakes, the handbrake up, everything, because people were like, you're negative Nelly. Like, no.
Yeah, that's the whole important thing from a viewer perspective, because there are going to be people that are indifferent, people that hate you, and people that love you, right?
Yep.
Like, we have that with everything. Like, that's the same on YouTube or on Twitch. There are people that like actively dislike with a passion people that just make a YouTube video or stream, and they will still come there because it's important for them that that they really don't like you. And fair enough, like, you'll take the numbers, right?
Right.
And then there are people that are super engaging and super happy about it and really like what you do. And then there are people that are like, okay, this dude or this chick says this, let's hear. and they're pretty indifferent. They'll listen, then they'll have their own take. My problem was if it ever came to the nudging people into being nice for the sake of being nice instead of being honest.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't trade that. Like, if I'm watching, like, one of the reasons I liked watching CS competitive was because there could be this extreme banter. And it was okay for a commentator to go out and say, you know what, this is one of the world's best players, and he dropped 2 kills in 16 rounds. He needs to wake the fuck up. This is unacceptable.
Parker did it the other day. Parker did it with Canadian the other day, and I thought to myself, if I said on a cast what Parker just said about an EU player, certain EU players or certain fan bases of certain teams, I would be ripped to shreds. And I thought to myself, I want to be able to come out on a cast and say what he said about Canadian in my own cast about players that I am sure I'm coming up an expert on. That's what I should be allowed to do. You are muted, by the way, Flanked.
Yeah, you're muted.
Please come back.
I was letting you guys go out because you're clearly way more qualified on this discussion than I am.
And heated.
I would love a third-person perspective, though.
And maybe this is me reading into it more than what's really there. But I've kind of gotten the gist that Parker does give Canadian a little bit harder time than most other players because of their relationship. They,
Right.
they're on a podcast together. And I'm not saying that Parker wouldn't say that about any other player, but I just say from previous broadcasts, I do kind of feel like he takes a little bit more liberty with him than he may with other players. But maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No,
I mean,
I
inside
think
jokes,
you're right.
yeah, inside jokes are something that are a big no-go because, like, they say that the viewership is 65 to 70% casual, and so broadcast is a big no-no to try and consistently do inside jokes because the viewership doesn't understand and it doesn't relate to them, etc. And in fact, that was the feedback I got recently because Des and I can be a bit inside jokey. So we're scaling it back because we understand, 67%, that's a big portion of viewership. So we get it. And we'll try and give it context into the future, we promise. But that to me was one of those things where I listened really intently to him doing that. And I felt like if I had replicated that on a desk or on, whatever, that there would be comments, and I don't know why. I think for the whole EU team, and it's whether we haven't just reached an echelon of respect that they have, or whatever it might be, where we're allowed or we're permitted. I think once I have this job, I have this job. I don't care if Parker's been doing that job for 4 years. I have the same job as him now, and now I must undertake the same things that he undertakes. That is it. That's what we all should hold ourselves to, the exact same standard. I don't care if you're tier 1 of tier 1. That's
No, I think what I really wanted to get at was, like, casters have to stop caring if the mob has an opinion on what they said about a player, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you shouldn't, if you start having your opinion changed by a mob, then your integrity kind of goes away. If you can be persuaded to say that, oh well, no, he played fantastic, wink. That, like, we never want to get there.
No. And we see bias in talent all the time. But, like, actually damaging bias. I'm not talking about, I kind of like VP. And in fact, because I like VP, I'm really critical on the desk about them, which I got to stop doing. You know what I mean? I'm really harsh about it. I'm like, yo, you should have done this. Like, I was their coach or something, right? And so this bias seeps in, and certain talent will do that thing where they go extra nice about regions or teams or whatever it might be. And they go that way because they feel like they have to, that they couldn't say anything bad about their team, or they couldn't tell a negative thing about it, or if they did it, they'd have to sugarcoat it really heavily first before they would say it coming out. And working multiple regions in the past few months has told me that there are some regions that are just sugarcoat heavy. I'm talking, I gotta go to the dentist after I've finished a cast with them, and I'm like, please, I have like 4 holes in my teeth. So we have to be careful we don't get to that, because I'm listening to this, and if I'm that 30% non-casual viewer, I'm thinking, whoa, this team or this region's great, and this and that, and then they're missing everything that went wrong. Everything.
Yeah. That's my problem. I never want to get to a point where a caster has to apologize for saying a player played poorly.
Yeah.
It happened in Valorant, and it's disgusting. And the people that asked for that should be ashamed.
They should be. They should be.
Like, at some point, like, harassment and all of that shouldn't be a thing. People that do it are horrible. But if you're commentating and you say someone who is there to deliver a product didn't deliver, you are not attacking them. You're not harassing them. You're doing your job as a caster or commentator, analyst, or whatever it is. If you're demanding for some sort of retribution through apology, like, go somewhere else. Richard Lewis did the video, and I encourage everyone to watch that one.
Yeah.
Whether you like the guy or not, it was a good breakdown of it. And that's definitely an unhealthy way esports been heading in a few scenes lately. We had a few cases of it in Siege where people freaked out a little bit about
It happened
what
to you and I.
someone said.
It happened.
Did it happen to us?
Stage 1. Don't you remember?
No. Was it on Reddit?
APAC North, a particular game between Giants and CAG on Clubhouse.
No, I don't read Reddit. Was it there?
It was some of our colleagues on Twitter.
Oh, that. Yeah. Okay. Well, luckily, yeah. Okay. So that one I remember. Yeah, that was someone being upset that.
There was someone. Yes, go ahead.
Someone's, yeah. I think they were upset that we were hard on them because they didn't win a round, or something along those lines. Like, it was really poor performance.
They said you shouldn't be critical. They won the game. I said they barely won the game, and the rounds that they did win were horrific.
Oh yeah, that's true. It was a horrible game, and they didn't look like they were playing proper. They didn't look like they were taking it serious, and they only just straight through.
And we got absolutely ripped by talent across the world, particularly in a certain region, naturally.
Yeah.
And there were subtweets, and there were tweets, and there were comments in my DMs about how I can do my job better. And all I'm saying is that if that ever happens again, I will be the first person to put out a tweet to go, I am sick of you telling me how to do my job. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't doing my job. And if you don't like hearing that something is wrong, then don't be here, because you're in the wrong industry.
But that's a fun thing, because it's cheap points to try and scrape, right? And I think we're doing this wrong in Siege, because I think casters are trying to like get points with teams. That's not how it works. I mean, it's arguably the exact opposite in most other games, where like they're actively almost fighting. Like Reaper had some interactions with players lately, and I love it. They were great. Yeah. Reaper's little interaction with Kenny, I'm sorry, man, Reaper won. That was funny.
You reckon?
They had a little forth and back about I think 2 kill average wasn't enough or something, and it I think it hit a nerve or something, but that was really funny.
He hit Lycan recently too, and I posted underneath, and I was like, "Oh right," I was like, "Yeah, that was a good one too."
Lycan won, but yeah, I did enjoy that one.
That was good. Poor Flanked, he's just died and gone to the abyss.
All right, I think I'm back.
Flanked frozen mind with a massive smile. It was great. I've been staring at you with a biggest smile for like 5 seconds.
Jess, okay, then Jess is back. All right, perfect. All right, do you guys want to move on to the NA League and EU finals?
Let's do it.
All right. I guess, I mean, again, you guys, Jess, you casted the EU League finals, correct? So let's start there.
Okay.
G2, I'll give my initial impressions. I'll be 100% honest. I didn't get to watch every match, but overall thought, I liked seeing G2 get a victory. I did. And I know you can't read into that too much before Invitational, hiding strats, blah, blah, blah. But to say that G2 won, I like that. I think it's good for the scene when G2 is a legitimate threat to win where they're at. And I think that's my overall takeaway. And despite what everybody is saying, as far as hiding strats and stuff like that, the G2 BDS match was extremely entertaining. Like, you can say whatever you want about hiding strats, but it was really fun to watch. And that was my big takeaway.
I'm going to paint a picture about the hiding strats so that people can understand that. And I did preface a lot of the rounds in saying, well, I actually don't think in SI you'll see them play this way. I don't even think you'll see them play the operators, but there's not one way to play Siege. And what G2 and BDS showed was, okay, we have all this this thing over here, and we got to go put it in the box for SI and in our suitcase to fly with us over to Paris. But what we're going to bring you with this is still a legitimate way to play the game, and it is still hyper a competitive way to play it. It's just not what we idealize as the bee's knees of what we got at the moment, but it still absolutely works and it slaps on screen. To cast that was awesome. I won't deny it. It's not wrong. It's different. It's not their best. It's not both of their bests, or at least what they consider to be both their bests. We'll find out come SI. So it doesn't make it wrong because they hid strats. It doesn't make it any less competitive because they tried another version of playstyle, which I actually think is quite aggressive. And that was entertaining as a result. So yes, they weren't at their best. Was G2 using something, I don't want to use the word random. Random's not the right word, but let's, use that anyway. Using random against BDS's random, stronger than BDS? Sure. Is BDS in a structured, highly structured with everything they've got, better than G2 at their best? Yes. But what we got was the freer team who's able to adapt on the fly and play this and play that was G2 on that particular day, which is exciting. That's an exciting thought.
I think Lycan put it in a good way that, well, first of all, this whole idea of like hiding strats. So you can very easily hide your new stuff and still play your old stuff. It's not like it magically you don't become bad just because you're playing the same setup that you've played before. Like SSG Rome is a good example. That's lasted pretty damn long. Empire's like 90% of their playbook lasted for over a season, right? So this idea that you have to like come up with completely new, and let's be fair, it's fairly rare that we see completely new stuff. We see a few iterations, we see a few new angles, some changes here and there, and it's good to have a couple of stables. The only thing I want was pretty much what Lycan said is just try your best. It's fine to hide stuff, but don't go in there and be a dance monkey and just fuck around. Because if I have to give the respect of sitting down and watching you play, you have to put on a show. Otherwise, I'll watch Netflix instead. And when enough people start agreeing with that idea, then your viewer numbers drop, and then your sponsors don't want to pay as much, and then you get tilted on Twitter. So as competitive players, you have to realize that like you got to put on a show. You got to make it fun to watch. And you don't even have to enjoy it. That really doesn't matter. It's work.
That's it.
And you have to respect the fact that there are going to be... I think this is why I was so pissed and so vocal about this thing with the team arguably throwing. We had a couple of months ago.
CIG.
I believe it was, yeah. Like they basically clowned around and did pretty much nothing. My big problem with that was that there are casters that are sitting there and it reflects on their job because they have to cast it. They don't have an option, right?
Sure.
And it's not something you want in your highlight reel. People just messing around in a game. There are viewers that plan to watch it. Sure, the whole way it was set up, unfortunate, shitty situation, really bad. They should just have refused to play the game instead. We've talked about that a bit, but the problem is wasting other people's time. When you do it as a statement like that, then that's not good on anyone. You want to take the high ground, then just say no.
There's a difference between hiding strats and not making an effort. Like you can hide strats and still try to win every round, try to win every gunfight. You might not be putting your best strat out there, but you're still trying to win.
We're also pretending like it's black magic. It's not, right? Like it's just a couple other site setups.
Right. So as long as you're trying, I got no issues. But okay, so maybe this is the other part of this conversation. Do we have an issue with the NA and EU finals being so close to the Invitational? Because here's what I'll say. One thing, it fosters this. People are going to hide strats, of course, okay? But the other side is, dude, these teams that competed, they got some priceless LAN experience less than a month before Invitational. Like, that's priceless. Like, I'm not going to even pretend to be on a level of professionals or anything, but I have played this game on LAN on a main stage. And it is completely different than playing it at your home. And I don't think that any experience in going to a foreign environment, playing this game on LAN against fellow pros can be overlooked as a great opportunity, especially when it happens less than a month before Invitational. Like, that's how I kind of looked at this, and I think it was executed perfectly. Now, am I saying that they shouldn't look at changing the way where it happens in the calendar next year? Yes, they probably should. But at the same time, I think that if I'm an NA fan, I'm glad that my top 4 teams went and competed on LAN and they got that experience. I am.
I don't think it's gonna matter in terms of like. I don't think the LAN game is gonna carry over in terms of like the difference between online and offline with a month in between, because at the end of the only difference is latency, right? That's it. I don't think that's gonna last like a month after, but they do get some games that matter, and I think that's the important thing. They get to go and play some games that kind of matter, and then people say, oh yeah, but Invitational is just coming. It's still a decent chunk of money.
Yeah.
And also, there's hopefully someone that is kind of pushing for you to win this, because it sounds a lot better being the EUL winner and Invitational winner than being EUL third and Invitational second or something. Like, you want to win as much as you can, like, of course. But I think the problem is that these matches were played while we were excited for Invitational.
Yeah, the timing was a bit off. I'm going to jump in because us comparing NA and EU is the best example for this, because I watched EU, or had to watch EU. I had to speak over it. I had to hear my annoying Australian accent. I had to speak over this game for however many friggin' hours that we went straight for, and almost every single map, you could have absolutely pulled the wool over my eyes. I wouldn't have known they were saving strats. G2 BDS, I would have sat there and gone, you know what? If they pulled this at SI, wouldn't be surprised. Probably wouldn't be too critical of them either. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? You pulled this. That's a great train rotate. That's train this. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. That's neat. Wow, I like how they're doing this. Haven't seen this before. They're pulling shit I haven't seen before in EUL finals right before SI. You know what I mean? I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool. And so I pull the wool over my eyes. I'm like, yeah, could have done it. You go to NA finals, which I did tune in and watch, and I went, what is this composition? This dude has never played this. This is completely not his role. This doesn't make sense. The way he solo pushed that doesn't make sense. So do you see why there might be an issue with the viewership if you're a little bit more than casual and you've seen these players play before, 1 or 2 matches, and if you're like me, a lot more than that, and you go, hang on.
I turned off on that game.
Did you really? Yeah, okay.
I watched almost the first map, and then I went to watch something else. And with the UL, I sat down and watched the whole thing.
Yep. It felt bad. You're talking about what Lycan said about play your best, and you can do it with other setups and stuff like that, but it just felt too far gone, too far beyond.
I mean, as a DZ fan, I'm never unhappy watching DZ beat SSG, so I was entertained on the edge of my seat the whole time.
You shouldn't be, and that's completely fine. And I think the problem was that if you're at a spot where you can call bullshit and say, okay, this isn't full throttle, it's not full effort, then it doesn't feel like there's the same stuff online.
It feels less, yeah.
Yes, and that was my problem, because all I wanted, like, I don't want to see their new shit. I just want them to do their best. That's why they get paid. It's why we watch. It's why we cheer. If I have to sit and figure out if you are coming with the champion mentality today or tomorrow, then it's hard for me to cheer for you. And it's hard for me to figure out if, like, you, if you want to be seen as an athlete or like, then you give your full when you're on screen all the time, every time. That's what you owe the viewers, right? There's no in between. There's
trying. I just think that holistically, the whole thing, the compositions, the operators, the certain pushes, the solo plays of a couple of players, if you combine that all together, all those little things, it's a big problem in viewing and understanding of the game. And if you compare it starkly to EUL, that was a big difference. And I know that wasn't the intention. I know that, and I don't want to call out people, but
if they're trying their best to win, there were some of the things that wouldn't have happened the way they happened.
Sure.
If winning was the intent, and like I'll happily take that argument with anyone. There was some things that would have been different. If learning was the intent, I fully believe what happened.
Yeah, I'll take that.
I'm not really there to watch you learn.
Yeah, It's hard, especially in a
that
finals. Yeah.
you can do that when you're not on screen.
Yeah.
There are like I know this sounds like some grumpy old man, but like the sponsors, the viewers, the casters, like we're not there for you. Do that on your own fucking time. That's why you have scrims. You don't go and do that on a show match. And if you do, then make sure that no one notices.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can go learn, man, but make it look like you're breaking a sweat.
Honestly, some really good points from both of you there. I think that listening to you guys, I'm even more convinced. Like, yeah, they got to change this next year. Like, don't put the NA finals so close, or EU finals. Don't put the finals this close to Invitational.
It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be in December. Right. Is that long enough? No, because it's the consecutiveness. The problem is the consecutiveness.
Make the points. I mean, this Invitational. If we quickly get in on that, this Invitational is absolutely scuffed. Right, like it's during a pandemic and everything had to be changed and messed around and it's not the same format. Everything's way quicker put together. But everything's different and it's put together much faster and it's in a different time. Blah blah blah. This is like a mess compared to what we're used to, right? And I hope for the best. I really do.
Yeah.
But when we then have the NAL this quickly up against, like, we don't know how it's gonna end up over there, right? If you have tournaments like this, there has to be enough on the line. It either has to be money where no one is gonna be like, oh, we're saving strats, like we want that money, right? Or points that go towards something.
Yeah. So
winning it has to matter. I think that might be one of, like, why do you think so many people were watching Dota and League when that came out? Do you think maybe the fact that they went out and said that it was the highest prize pool in esport history had something to do with people tuning in? Like, it is so much more interesting to watch something when there's $1 million on the line. And I don't know why. Like, I can watch shit that I don't even care about if there's enough money on the line.
Do you remember? Right? Do you remember the Australian Open in my country? Australian Open Fortnite Championship, and there was however many $1 million, and Bugger, whatever his name is, won however many million, right? The kid from Melbourne or whatever he is from.
Yeah, I watched highlights for that. I've never watched Fortnite in my life.
I hate Fortnite. Like, I can use the word hate here because that game, like, just all over. I cannot play. I hate it. I really dislike it. And I watched that to see who would win however many $1 million because I was like, oh my God, someone's down in Melbourne at the tennis, sitting there with their controller or whatever. They're playing for like, oh my God, like they're buying the house, they're paying their student debt, they're paying like blah, blah, blah. Like I'm counting it and going, Jesus Christ. And I was all about that. You are exactly right. What you're saying is that there's either not enough on the line, money or points, or both. I don't care. Maybe you can 50-50 it. Something.
Yeah, and it's not that we have to turn it into, if it's not about enough money, it doesn't matter. It's just that everything has to build to something. That like that's why we're hyped about Invitational, right? Like, okay, the team's got to qualify. They've gone a long way, and even the first match is like a big thing to overcome. And when you finally get to the last match, there is so much building up to that, and it's such an achievement winning that. Whereas NAL and EUL this time seemed like it was. Honestly, I think the whole regionalizing has just failed. I think that's the biggest issue with viewer numbers. So I think that's where it went wrong, and why competitive Siege isn't as interesting anymore as it used to be. We have too much of it. They're too split. There's not enough of on the line. It's just games and games and games. It's like those AFK channels on CS. ESL, where they just keep running old matches over and over, and there's always like 4,000 or 5,000 people watching, but like you can't tell the difference between which game is which anymore.
The NA finals was the third tournament this year of the same 4 NA teams competing against each other.
Oh, well,
yeah, that's because all the NA teams were leaving.
Well, I mean,
and that's no fault to the organizers necessarily, but when we're talking about viewership interest, okay, I've seen this. Like I've already seen this twice. And now it's right before Invitational when these teams are hiding strats. I don't really care. But with that said, it got more viewers than the other ones because of the Twitch drops.
I was going to say, there's only 4 teams to cheer for in NA right now, right? Because it's the only 4 that are playing.
When they announced the NA format, I thought to myself, hang on. those teams are just going to recycle and play each other over and over again. I'm like up to chapter 6 of a book and I'm rereading the same fight between Bakugo and like, whoever. I'm like, again? Like, are we just rematching for the 7th time? And I was like, no way. At least in EU, not that it's a superior format. I don't know I'm not an expert behind what should work or should not. But at least I got to watch Vitality go get G2, Navi, so on and so forth, until I was like, wow, Navi goes up against these kind of teams really well, but these kind of teams. And it was just exhausting to me. It was so exhausting.
I'm a big fan of like point systems where you can see teams climbing in their position over time, right? So, okay, sure, they might lose a game here, but they've won so many games that we know they're number 2 in the world.
Yeah.
And we have a point system there, and you go through like your ladder system where some teams get yoinked out and some progress, and like all of that is good. The problem with the way Siege is right now in the regionalized small things is that you only really have to care about the top 2 teams in each place. That's all you like. If you know that, you know enough. And then you only really have to wait until Invitational and then see what 4 teams make it furthest. And then that's the ones you need to keep up with. Because a lot of the other stuff is kind of recycled. And it's very hard to tell the difference. If it wasn't because of new operators released, it could be very hard to tell when the match was played. And I think that's a bit of that's a place we kind of failed, because then we start resembling CS a bit too much, where if it wasn't because of what player had been kicked on that team, we wouldn't be able to tell if it was played in 2019 or 2018. So I don't know, man. It's in a rough spot, but the whole pandemic shit doesn't help either, right? We need to start getting some international lands.
I'm still really excited for Invitational though, and I personally like the way that they're doing groups. We're going to see a lot of Siege, and
that's so good.
I'm excited to see that as well.
Yeah. So I guess let's wrap up on that note. Jess, where can people find you?
Well,
In Australia.
I was going to say, not in the clouds as it currently looks like my angelic self is. It's currently like 8:15 a.m. and for the first time in a while, the sun's out. No, you can find me JessGOAT everywhere, predominantly on Twitter and Twitch. I don't really do the YouTube thing too much, or Instagram. I try and upload a snap here and there. So mostly YouTube, mostly Twitch and Twitter, I should say, is JessGOAT everywhere.
All right, well, we'll have your Twitter and Twitch linked down below in the description. Highly encourage anybody who wants to interact with Jess, go down there, drop her a follow, check out for her streams. Also look for her as she continues her casting career, and who else, and who knows what else lies ahead for you. So thank you so much, Jess, for coming on. Really enjoyed the conversation, and been wanting to do this for a while. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you guys on the next episode.